In this video, I'm going to show you how to group objects as well as how to edit the groups afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to kind of like combine these shapes forward, and I'm going to do kind of like a little bit of trickiness into my creation here. I'm going to like make this look like strange kind of drippy frosting things. Oops. So that I have some interesting shapes that are happening. So I just created kind of this new object, and I think I'm going to kind of like what was going on with this design. I'm going to give it kind of a weird little nose on top of it, and I'm going to hold shift so it's nice and even. So I've created this new kind of design, and if I move each of these, you can see that they move individually. But that kind of gets tricky, and I can click and drag and move them as a whole, but that means that I have to be able to click and drag every time. And if I accidentally move it onto something else and I want to click and drag, then I'm going to have to go through the step of, you can see how they move as a group, of pressing shift and deselecting from other things, which can get ultimately kind of tricky if we once we have really complex designs with lots of different layers of stuff. So an easy thing that I can do if I want to keep these guys grouped together is select the things that I want, and then I can right click or command click this, and I can come down to group, and I can group them together as one group. And so now when I click on it, you can see that it grabs all of them as one whole group. And if I right click it on again, I can come to ungroup, and it'll ungroup the things that are grouped there so that I can move those things individually. So that can be very helpful. Another way in which I can group things, if I use Command G, it'll group them together. And if I use Command Shift G, it will ungroup them. Say I want to group these guys. I'm going to move over here so that you guys can see, and I'm going to put my screen back to something like normal. And we're going to zoom in on these two shapes so that you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. I have these things grouped, and say I don't actually like, there's actually a little like bump here that's a little bit weird, as well as like I kind of liked this before when I was thinking of it as a nose, but it actually looks like a cool drip. So I want to add that drip under these like long drippy parts, as well as add a secondary. And I can very easily draw in another drip, and then I could you can see that it's separate of it, but if I wanted to, I could select the whole thing and group them as a whole. But there's some other interesting ways in which we can go into a group. So once I'm in a group, if I double click, notice how the shape on the left turned lighter. And so that's showing me that I have isolated this group. And we can kind of see up here in the top, it says so. It says that we're in layer 1 and we're in a specific group. And if I come and check my layers, we can see that same information. I am in an isolated group within that layer. If I want to get out of an isolated group, I can double click outside of that group, and you can see that I'm back here in the common space where I can move and touch everything. But let's isolate this layer, and you can see that I cannot move or touch any of the objects outside. So this is actually helpful, but I can move each of these things individually. So I kind of liked how that was lined up, and I'm going to move this drip so that it's a part of here. And then I think I'm going to move in here, and I don't like how those things got all, they got kind of weird and bumpy. So I am going to use this the smoothing tool to smooth those out a little bit more. Now that looks a lot better. And I'm going to add one more droplet. I'm going to use Option Move so I can duplicate it really quickly. I'm going to shrink this one down a little bit more. There we go. So now I have created some adjustments within that group, and I'll double click out of the group so that I'm back in the common space. And now you can see that this all moves as one whole solid piece, and this is its own piece that I can touch and move. So that is how you create groups, how you ungroup things, and how you isolate a group so you can create adjustments within that group and then move outside of it.